Do you know about An Jung-geun? He's one of the most popular patriot in Korea who fought for independence. To tell about his achievement, he had killed the leader of the Residency, General named Ito Hirobumi. It was October 26, 1909. Ito Hirobumi was scheduled to come to Harbin to have a negotiation with Russia about installing a railroad through the Russia and Korean peninsula. An Jung-geun had a plan to go to Harbin to kill him. He thought that Ito Hirobumi was all the reason about the Japanese colonial era, so he shot him for 3 times, and finally Ito Hirobumi was dead. An Jung-geun had went to a trial reasoned by murdering Ito Hirobumi. Even he had been very proud of himself, he finally got a sentence of this. He was imprisoned in prison Daesun. To understand more easily, you have to know more and more background facts. This place, the Risum prison, was built in Russia, 1902, to control the Chinese citizens. But after the War of Japan and Russia, Japan wins, it was handled by Japan. The whole place is about 26,000 meters with 275 rooms, which can handle about 2,000 people at once. Most of the prisoners are Korean, Russian, and Chinese, and at the 1906 to 1936, the annual prisoners were about 20,000 people. During the Pacific War, more than 700 people was killed at this prison. But after Japan had defeated at World War II, Soviet Union Army had used it, and it was not used for prison after Soviet Union. Chinese government had opened this prison to civilians at 1971 and made it as a heritage at 1988. Because An Jung-geun had died for independence, even Chinese have think that he respected him. So at Harbin Station, where Ito Hirobumi was killed, Chinese government had made a copper plate where An had shot Ito Hirobumi. They carved the letter where Ito Hirobumi was killed, and in the Harbin Station there was a statue of Ito Hirobumi. But after the Japan surrender at the World War II, it has been removed. And at 2013, Korean president had told the Chinese premier to make a statue of An in Harbin Station. The Chinese premier said okay, and at 2014, Museum of An Jung-geun and the statue of An Jung-geun was made and opened in Harbin Station. When we go to Harbin or Harbin Station, I recommend you to go to the An Jung-geun's museum. And when I searched for things related with An Jung-geun, I also looked at the thing about Koreans' pain. When you come to the Independence Gate in Korea, you also have to go to the Sodom prison, which has the very painful history. It was the scariest place for the independence fighters if they had been imprisoned there. They got tortured, and they even can't eat food until it was full, and also they have been executed at there. This prison was built in 1907 and was used since Japanese colonial era to 1916s, about 80 years. During the usage of this prison, more than 3 million people was in, and the numerous people was killed during the Pacific and the Japanese colonial era. Even it has a terrible story, it is now remodeled, and it is now turned to the museum to citizens and people who want to study about the painful Korean history. I recommend here. There is also the room, an execution ground, and torture chamber. Even if it is remodeled, I still recommend here because it is very similar to the past. When I searched about the life of An Jung-geun and about the background facts, I had learned about new things about An Jung-geun and the place related to him, and the other efforts of the true independence fighters and the patriots. I feel really thankful for them, and it's for especially An Jung-geun. I had researched for. I am really thankful to him, and I also respect him. I will never make our ancestors embarrassed anymore about Korea and us. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today, we would like to introduce an important person in Korean history. An Jung-geun was an independence fighter during the time of Joseon Dynasty. He is well known to Koreans for killing Ito Hirobumi, who was the Governor General of Japan at that time. We would like to talk about him and his life as an independence fighter. First of all, we will introduce about what he has done as an independence fighter at the period of Japanese occupation. Firstly, he participated in a campaign to compensate government bonds. In the year of 1904, the first Korea-Japan Treaty was signed. After this treaty, Japan introduced a loan to Joseon and used the money for expanding the police authority and building infra facilities for Japanese residents in Korea. Eventually, in 1907, the national debt of Korean government was 13 million won. So, many people, including politicians and civilians of Korea, launched a movement to raise a grant for repaying the national debt. People stopped smoking and started to save money that they used to pay for cigarettes. They also gathered jewelries including wedding rings. At that time, An Jung-geun was the director of National Debt Compensation Foundation. Thanks to his effort, a considerable amount of fund was gathered from all over the country. However, since Japan had to keep Korea from regaining power through this movement, they kept interfering in the business and imprisoned Yang Gi-tak, who was one of the leaders of the movement. So, the movement failed without a big achievement. Still, it holds a great significance to Korean people. It is because we came together and attempted to overcome the national difficulties together. Also, An Jung-geun devoted his time and passion into fighting for Korean independence. In 1907, Jeongmi Treaty was signed and Korea lost the national sovereignty. So, An Jung-geun went to Russia and organized an army to fight against Japan. In 1909, he heard the news that Ito Hirobumi, the Governor General of Japan at the time, was visiting Manchuria. He planned to assassinate him. At Harbin Station, An Jung-geun shot Ito and got imprisoned. While he was in the trial for the incident, he requested that he should be treated as a prisoner of war since he was arrested as the Lieutenant General of the righteous army. Also, he claimed that what he did was not a violation of law since Ito committed a serious crime against Korea's national sovereignty. He was interested not only in fighting Japan, but also cultivating students. He established the Samung학교 in 1906 in South Pyongan Province. There, he established Samung Academy, where primary education was done, and many patriots such as An Chang-ho and Lee Jun were invited to make a speech for the students. Also, he took over another academy called the Donihakyo. The two academies both grew up to be an elite school, and military education was also done there. Like this, we can see that An Jung-geun achieved great results in promoting human resources during the hard time of Japanese occupation. As we can see, An Jung-geun was a significant figure of Korean history who led many movements against the Japanese occupation. He paved the way while he was in the prison at Lushun.